I found my wife secretly funneling $300, $0 into her sister's offshore account while I was away for business. Then she suddenly summoned a lawyer claiming I was trying to steal everything, including the house valued at $1.2 million. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this out, but here I am. The most shocking thing I ever found out was that my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with her boss, while simultaneously draining hundreds of thousands of dollars into her sister's offshore account. Yeah, you read that right. It sounds like some soap opera, but it's my real life, and it blew my mind apart. We'd been married for about 8 years. Nice house, decent jobs, 2 kids, everything looked perfect from the outside. Lisa always seemed ambitious, a little bitchy maybe, but sharp and driven. I thought she was the perfect partner, but I started noticing little things. She'd get defensive if I asked about her phone, always had some excuse about work emails or a work friend she was chatting with late at night. She'd suddenly be busy at odd hours, always claiming she was working late or meeting a client. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. Then I noticed the bank statements. Noticed some unusual transfers, but I figured maybe she was handling some side business or investing. She was always into making more money, claiming she wanted to secure our future. She'd brush off my questions, call me paranoid, tell me I was just insecure. But then I stumbled on something that changed everything. It was late one night when I was out of town on a business trip. I'd left my laptop open in the living room, thinking I'd check some emails before bed. And that's when I saw the email. A transfer of $300, $0 from our joint account into an offshore account that I'd never heard of under her sister's name. The account was in the Bahamas or some Caribbean island I'd never even heard of. My stomach dropped. I started digging. That's when I found out she'd been funneling money into her sister's account. For months, I don't think she thought I'd ever find out. She told me she was investing in some property deal, some big opportunity she was excited about. But the truth was she was just stealing money, hiding it, lying through her teeth. And the worst part, I found out she'd been doing it while I was away for work, trusting her to handle the bills and make smart investments. Instead, she was screwing me over and lining her sister's pockets. I sat there, stunned. My mind raced. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly? I felt betrayed on every level, financially, emotionally, as a husband. And then I found her phone. I was going to confront her the next day, but I couldn't wait. I saw a message from her boss, Robert, that was pretty explicit. They'd been having sex, probably for months. The messages were flirty, suggestive, and often about meeting up or secret work dinners. I couldn't believe it. My wife, who I thought was this ambitious, strong woman, was actually cheating on me with her boss and stealing from us at the same time. It was like some twisted double life. I felt sick, angry, hurt, confused. I'd always trusted Lisa, maybe too much. Now I was sitting on a mountain of evidence that everything I thought I knew was a lie. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going over everything, trying to piece it together, trying to understand how she could do this to me, to us. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know what to expect. Would she lie her way out? Would she admit everything? I was terrified of what I might hear. But one thing was clear. My life was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't know. I had the evidence, screenshots of her messages, bank statements, emails, and I was ready to confront her. I told myself I'd keep my cool, but inside I was boiling with anger and betrayal. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she think she could get away with it? Lisa was in the kitchen, making coffee, acting normal, too normal, honestly. It was like she had no idea I knew everything. I didn't want to just blow up right away, so I decided to approach it slowly. I sat down, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Lisa, we need to talk." Her face immediately shifted, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. She asked what was wrong. I pulled out the phone with the messages and the bank statements, laid them on the table. Her reaction was classic. She started with denial first, then quickly shifted to anger. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "That's none of your business. You're just paranoid. I've been working hard trying to secure our future and you're accusing me of cheating and stealing." Her voice was sharp, dismissive. She tried to brush it off, claiming the money was for a big investment, that she was doing it all to make us richer, to give the kids a better life. But I knew better. I saw the way she looked at Robert, her boss, the way she'd been sneaking around behind my back. I pressed her further, asked her about the offshore account, about the money. Her eyes flashed with anger. She started crying, saying I was accusing her of things she didn't do. That I was just jealous of her success, that she was working so hard to give us everything. She lied, flat out lied, saying she had no idea about the offshore account, that her sister was just helping her with some investments for tax reasons. But I knew she was lying. I had proof. The betrayal hit me hard. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I'd always been the one working hard, providing for us, trusting her to handle the money. And now I found out she'd been secretly stealing from us for months, that she'd been lying about everything. I couldn't believe I married someone like her. I'd always thought Lisa was ambitious, maybe a little bitchy, but honest. Turns out she was just a master manipulator. I stayed silent for a long moment after she finished her lies. I didn't know what to say. My head was pounding, my heart was broken. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and utter disbelief. How could she do this? How could she betray me and our family like this? It wasn't just the money, though that was a big part. It was the trust. The trust I thought we had. I started questioning everything. Did I ever really know her? Was this who she was all along? I told her I needed some time to think. I said I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I couldn't stay like this. I stormed out of the house, feeling numb, unsure of my next move. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to figure out how to protect myself, protect our assets, and figure out what her next move might be. Because I had a feeling this was just the beginning. I spent the rest of the day trying to process everything, trying to stay calm but feeling like I was spiraling. I kept replaying her words, her lies, and the evidence I had. The worst part, the sense that I'd been played for a fool. I had trusted her, built my life around her, and now I was faced with the reality that she'd been cheating and stealing from us all along. I didn't sleep that night either. Instead, I stayed awake, planning my next steps, knowing that whatever I decided, my life was never going to be the same again. The following days were a blur. I kept going over everything in my head, trying to figure out my next move, feeling like I was caught in some terrible nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to protect what was left of my life, my money, my reputation, my family. But at the same time, I was drowning in confusion and anger. How had I missed all the signs? How had she managed to keep this hidden for so long? I decided to hire a lawyer. I needed someone who understood the legal side of things, especially with the offshore accounts and the house. I called a firm I'd heard about that specialized in financial infidelity and divorce cases. The lawyer, Mark, was sharp, no nonsense, and immediately understood the scope of what I was dealing with. I showed him the evidence I had, screenshots, bank statements, the email exchanges with her boss, Robert. Mark looked over everything carefully, then told me that I had a strong case to contest the offshore accounts, and that I might even be able to freeze some of her assets if I moved quickly. But even as I took these legal steps, I felt a burning desire for revenge, not just financial but emotional. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd inflicted on me. I started planning how to turn the tables, how to make her understand that I wasn't some naive fool she could manipulate anymore. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time I'd be prepared. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. One afternoon, I set up a meeting with her at our house. I told her I wanted to talk, just us. She arrived wearing her usual confident, bitchy smirk, thinking she could spin her way out of this again. I played it cool, kept my voice calm but firm. I told her I knew about the money, about her affair with Robert, about the offshore account. Her face changed instantly, shock, then defiance. She tried to deny it again, but I had the evidence. I laid everything out on the table. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming she was under so much pressure, that I didn't understand her, that the money was for us, that Robert was just a work friend, that she was doing everything for the family. She even went as far as to say I was trying to control her, that I was paranoid and jealous. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I didn't buy it. She'd been caught red-handed, lying and cheating. I told her she'd crossed a line, that I was done being played for a fool. I told her I was going to take everything, the house, the savings, everything she'd tried to hide. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did. Her face twisted in anger and she yelled, "You think you're so smart. You're just a stupid husband who's too blind to see how much I've done for this family." But I didn't flinch. I was done listening to her lies. I knew I had to be strong to get through this. That night I couldn't sleep again. My mind kept replaying her words, her lies, her betrayal. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. Finally, I saw her for who she really was. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. And I couldn't stay married to someone who'd betray me so completely. I made the decision then and there. I was going to fight for my rights, for my dignity, and for the life I deserved. I wasn't going to let her ruin me, not without a fight. I started gathering more evidence, texts from Robert, hidden emails, more bank statements. I wanted to be ready for whatever came next. I knew she'd try to lie her way out, spin some story, or even try to turn the kids against me. But I was determined. This was the beginning of the end, and I was going to make sure I came out on top. I had no idea how far this rabbit hole went, but I was ready to dig deep and expose everything. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting to reclaim my life from the woman I thought I knew. The days that followed were like walking through a storm with no clear end in sight. I kept pushing forward with my legal plans, but inside, I felt a mix of dread and anger that only grew stronger. Every time I looked at the house, I saw her face, her lies, her betrayal. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I could do was think about what she'd done, how she'd manipulated me, and how I was going to make her pay. I started talking to some friends, but most of them didn't understand the full scope of what I was going through. They knew she was a bitch, sure, but they didn't know about the offshore accounts or the affair. I felt like I was alone in this, like I was fighting some invisible enemy who was always one step ahead. Still, I refused to back down. I had to find ways to even the playing field, to make her realize she couldn't keep lying and cheating without consequences. One thing I did was install a hidden camera in the living room. I didn't trust her anymore, and I wanted to catch her in the act if she tried to sneak around or meet Robert again. I set it up carefully, making sure it was discreet. A few nights later, I watched the footage. Sure enough, she was sneaking out late at night to meet Robert. They'd been doing it for months, probably right under my nose. Seeing it in real time was like a punch to the stomach all over again. I felt sick, but also more determined. I also decided to confront her again, this time with more evidence. I called her into the living room, laid everything out, screenshots of the messages, the bank transfers, the secret emails. I told her I knew about the affair, about the offshore account, about the money she'd stolen. Her reaction was priceless. She went from angry denial to tears, then to outright fury. She yelled at me, called me paranoid, said I was trying to ruin her, but I didn't flinch. I was done playing her game. Then she switched tactics. She started begging, saying she was sorry, that she'd made a mistake, that she'd do anything to fix things. I looked at her and thought, fix what? The lies, the betrayal. I told her I didn't believe her anymore, that I was done with her bullshit. I told her I was going to take everything, her house, her money, everything she thought she could hide. I wanted her to see that she couldn't keep up her lies forever. Meanwhile, I had hired a private investigator to dig into her sister's offshore account and see what else she might be hiding. I wanted to know if there were more accounts, more stolen money, more secrets. The PI uncovered several other accounts linked to her sister, with millions transferred over the past year. I couldn't believe it. She'd been laundering money through her family, probably to keep her secret life afloat. The whole thing was so much bigger than I'd imagined. It was like some criminal enterprise, and I was just starting to peel back the layers. I knew I had to act fast. I filed for divorce, citing financial fraud and infidelity. I also started the process of freezing her assets and claiming full custody of the kids. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I wanted her to realize she couldn't keep lying and cheating her way through life. I was furious, but also relieved that I was finally taking control of my future. That night I sat alone in what used to be our bedroom. I looked around at the empty space, the bed that once symbolized our life together. I thought about all the memories, the good times, the trust I'd given her, and I felt a strange mixture of sadness and anger. Sad that I'd been so blind, and angry that she'd betrayed me so completely. But deep down, I knew I was better off without her. I couldn't let her destroy what little remained of my dignity. I promised myself I'd rebuild, stronger, smarter, and more cautious than ever before. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that some people aren't worth the pain they cause, and revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your life from those who try to destroy it. The legal battle was brutal, but I was determined to come out on top. I knew Lisa would do everything she could to manipulate the situation, spin stories, and try to turn the kids against me. She was good at lying, but I had the evidence, and I was ready to fight for everything I deserved. The courtroom was a battlefield, and I felt like I was fighting not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity and sanity. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that I was trying to control her, that I was paranoid, and that her actions were just a desperate attempt to secure her sister's future. But I had the proof: bank transfers, emails, witness statements from the pie. When I presented it all, her lawyer's face paled. The judge looked at the evidence, then at Lisa, and I could see the wheels turning. It was obvious she'd been caught red-handed, and her whole house of cards was starting to collapse. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, crying and claiming she loved the family, that she'd never do anything to hurt us. But I knew better. I knew her game. She was a manipulative, selfish woman who'd lied, cheated, and stole her way through our marriage. I refused to let her get away with it. I pushed for full custody of the kids, knowing that her unstable behavior and her affair with Robert would hurt them in the long run. In the end, I got what I wanted: full custody of the children and most of the assets. I also managed to have her legally barred from accessing the offshore accounts, which was a huge win. But even with the legal victory, the emotional scars lingered. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Part of me was glad I'd fought so hard, but another part was devastated that our marriage had ended like this. After everything was settled, I moved out of the house. I rented a small apartment nearby, just enough to give the kids stability and me some space to breathe. I kept my distance from Lisa, knowing she'd probably try to manipulate the situation even further. I focused on rebuilding my life, working harder at my job, and spending more quality time with the kids. They deserved stability, and I was determined to give it to them, no matter what. Looking back, I realize I've learned some hard lessons. Trust isn't something to take for granted, and some people are better left alone once they show their true colors. I've become more cautious, more aware of the signs of deception. But I also learned that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, isn't the point. The real victory was reclaiming my life, standing up for myself and doing what's right, even when it's the hardest thing to do. Now, I'm just trying to put this all behind me. Still hurts, still stings knowing what she did, but I know I'll be okay. I've got a fresh start, and I'll never let someone like her destroy me again. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone going through something similar: trust your instincts, gather evidence, and never underestimate the power of standing up for yourself. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to fight for your life the way you do. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much I've changed. The trust I once had is gone, replaced by a cautious awareness I never had before. I don't think I'll ever fully recover from the betrayal, but I've learned to rebuild stronger, smarter, and more resilient. The house is gone, the marriage is over, but I still have my kids, my dignity, and a sense of justice that I refuse to let slip away. I often wonder how Lisa is doing now. I don't know if she feels the weight of everything she lost, or if she's still spinning her stories, trying to manipulate her way out of her mess. Honestly, I don't care. What matters is that I've moved on. I've learned that some people are just selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for their own gain. And I've learned that revenge isn't just about making someone pay, it's about taking back control of your life. Every day now is a new chance to start fresh. I focus on my work, on my kids, and on rebuilding trust in myself. I've become more guarded, more cautious, but also more aware of what's real and what's not. The betrayal hurt deeply, but it also made me realize how precious honesty and loyalty are, qualities I'll never take for granted again. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that sometimes you only learn the truth when you're ready. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar understands this. Don't ignore the red flags. Trust your gut, gather evidence if needed, and stand your ground. No one should have to go through the pain of betrayal alone, and most importantly, you have the power to reclaim your life. In the end, I've found peace in knowing I fought for myself, for my kids, and for what's right. That's the real victory. And no matter how dark things seemed at the start, I'm moving forward better, wiser, and more prepared for whatever life throws next.